So she, was jaw popping and bluffing and, typical kind of behavior, like aggressive behavior or warning behavior.
If you ever wanted to know what it was like to get into a bear's den, face first, 2 feet away from a wide-awake and angry mama bear protecting her cubs, you'll know by the end of today's show. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, and we're going into that bear's den this morning. The Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife has been studying bears for over 30 years. They've tagged and radio-collared hundreds of them. Every winter, they go into these dens and see how their bears are doing. They handled hundreds of bears this winter, and just my luck, today's bear was the toughest bear they faced all year. And it's my job to stand right there and not make any noise. Randy Cross is the crew chief, but I'll be working alongside crew members nicknamed Kid, Jump, and Shoe, trying to get this bear tranquilized so we can weigh her, check her health, and see if she's got any cubs. Spoiler alert, this bear is not going to go quietly. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. The occasion for today's show happened almost 2 weeks ago, Monday, March 14th. Every year, biologists from the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife go into the woods to check on their bears. This monitoring project is the oldest black bear study in the nation. Its crew chief is Randy Cross. Randy has been at it for about 34 years. He has handled more bears than anybody ever in all of human history. More bears than anybody alive or dead. Maine has more black bears than any state east of the Mississippi, and about as many western states 4 times our size. We've got a lot of bears. The project started when there was concern we had too few bears. Nowadays, we may have too many. Bears will do whatever they have to. Normally, they'll avoid people, but if populations get too big, they'll start moving into the suburbs, tearing down bird feeders, and ripping the doors off sheds. Managing bears is one of the most important projects at IFW, and we're going into the woods today to see how they do it. First, we settle into the conference room at IFW headquarters in Bangor.
All right. I'm Randy Cross, and I've worked for the bear study now. This is my 34th den season. It's been a tough year. Normally, we do all of our work on snow sleds, and we use water courses as avenues of travel. This year, we're on ATVs, and the water courses are a major obstacle to travel. So it's been tough getting around, and the bears have been quick to run, especially with the warm weather. So it's been the toughest year I've been through since 2007, when we didn't have snow that year either, and we worked off ATVs back then. But in 2007, the big difference between this year and that year is this year's been warm. That year was cold right through March. This is a long-term monitoring project, and the important word there is long-term. The phrase of long-term monitoring. It's not a research project. Most research projects have a limited period of time that they have to answer a specific question. Once the question has been answered, then you can move on with that information in your management of that animal. That's why we don't call it a research project. Some people would call it research, but in reality it's monitoring. And monitoring is a little different because there's no start and there's no end to monitoring. It's basically our finger on the pulse of the bear population. So if something happens out there, good or bad, we're going to be there to identify it. And we're not going to be sitting here staring at our computer screens trying to figure out what happened, because we're actually going out and putting our hands on bears. So it's long term, and as far as I'm concerned, I believe it should go on forever. But that's because I value the bear population and their welfare above all else. It's been my passion, it's been my entire adult life, my entire career of providing information to better manage bears in the state of Maine. Things are continually changing, and that's why we don't go out and study the bears for 5 years and say we know all we need to know now and stop studying them and say we're going to move forward with that information. And that works well for a lot of animals. Personally, I don't think it works well for bears at all. Things happen slow in the bear world, but we do see changes over time that if we had quit, for instance, in 1990, we would really be lost now. But even if we had quit in 2000, just 16 years ago, we'd be totally lost now, because things have changed that much since 2000 in the bear world. So we're maintaining a number of radio-collared females in 3 different study areas. And the study area you're going to today, we refer to as Downeast, Maine. It's about an hour east of here. And it represents all the bears living in similar habitat conditions to what occurs on the study area. When we talk about bears, we talk about habitat. It's quite different from a lot of animals. When we talk about habitat with bears, we're really talking about food, natural food, and what's available for food for the bears in that habitat that we see down there. This Downeast study area has turned out to be very different from our Bradford study area, which is just north of here, west of the interstate, basically south of Howland down towards Old Town. And they're only, I think, air miles, something like 40 miles apart. But we found the bears down there are marching to a completely different tune than the bears in Bradford. And the bears in Bradford are faring very differently from the bears in our northern study area west of Ashland that we refer to as Speck Pond. So why are we coloring these female bears? And we go into every hunting season with a little over 100 collared bears every fall, and have about 90 dens to visit every winter after the hunting season and after the bears have slipped the collars off over their head, or the battery's gone dead, or they took a trip so far the pilots can't find them. So we lose bears in a variety of ways, and that requires us to trap every spring to maintain our numbers. So for 6 or 7 weeks every spring, we capture bears and bolster. We choose a study area that we feel like needs it the most, and we increase the number of collared females in that study area. Trying to put it in a nutshell, why would you collar a bunch of female bears? It is pretty simple. We know exactly how many bears the hunters are harvesting every year because they need to register them. So the question we need to answer is, how many bears are entering the population to take the place of those being harvested? So we have to estimate that and have some confidence in our estimate of that number. That number we call recruitment. It's the number, not that fancy a term, but it's the number of bears entering the population. So how we do that is we go out in the dens and count cubs and come up with an average litter size, also find out what percentage of young bears are producing cubs, and use all that to in a model to figure out how many cubs we think are born this winter. And the more important part of our den work as far as recruitment goes is then going to those same dens the following winter and see how many cubs are still there at 1 year old, because they spend the next winter with their mother. So if 3 cubs were born, we can go in the next winter and find out if all 3 are there, or only 2, or they lost the entire litter. So we have numbers, real numbers, to work with to try to guess how many bears are entering the population. We're talking about yearling bears, really, because the next summer those yearlings will actually separate from the mother and take on life alone and enter the bear population in harvestable, basically a harvestable animal. Even though cubs are legal to harvest, they really are not harvested, nor are the mothers. Mothers with cubs are basically bulletproof.
That's Randy Cross, the Bear Team crew leader, who will be taking us to a bear's den later on the show. Up next, we'll find out more about this particular bear. And before we even get to that, I'll be testing you on what you know and don't know about Maine black bears. I'm at the Bangor headquarters of the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. In just about 20 minutes, we're heading down east to go meet a bear. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. I'm once again in the headquarters of the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife in Bangor. In a few minutes, we're heading down east to meet a bear named Shield. We'll hear more about her in just a moment. But first, how much do you know about the Maine black bear? Pop quiz. IFNW gets how many bear complaints every year? 5, 500, or 5,000? Relax, it's about 500. Most black bears stay away from humans, but a hungry bear might like to raid a bird feeder or a beehive. And as the bear population keeps expanding, they can make people nervous around livestock and schoolyards. So Maine sets targets on how many bears we have. Too many can be a problem. The number is set by the public every 15 years, and a new plan is actually being worked on right now. You might think that hunting is the only method we use to control human interactions with bears, but actually the department spends quite a bit of time getting people used to having them around, promoting public tolerance. Bear attacks are extremely rare in Maine. Even though we have a lot of them, bears are very difficult to hunt. They have keen eyesight, incredible hearing, and a nose so sensitive it can smell a cheese doodle from 2 counties away. You just can't sneak up on one in the state. Weather, climate change, forestry practices, they're all having an effect on bear populations too. On the whole, our current forest is better for bears than the thick spruce fir forest we used to have before the last spruce budworm outbreak of several decades ago. Coupled with the decline in hunting, we've actually got way more bears than what the public required during the last policy goals when they were set. So let's get back to one bear, the bear we're planning to visit today. Once again, Randy Cross.
So we're going to a bear today that's 5 years old. This bear was abandoned by its mother 5 years ago as a cub, and would not have survived if it weren't for the 2 people who just walked in. So this bear, she raised it, and so that's why she's here today, and she's going to be a grandmother, I believe, for the first time. And
Hopefully.
yeah, we're still hoping because we don't know. That's the thing with den work, you really don't know. You don't know till you get there. And we decided not to take the risk and go up and listen for cubs, so we really don't know, but we will find out. And Dawn's raised a number of cubs. I'll let her talk a little bit. She runs a facility on her own land, on her own dime, in western Maine, New Sharon, and has been at it for a long time. I believe it was, well, go ahead. You might as well talk about, do you mind talking about
I don't
what you
mind
do?
talking, heck no. Yeah, it's pretty much about keeping them wild. I think I do a fairly good job at that. Sometimes I'll get them, they're neonates and their eyes aren't even open, but usually they'll find dens for them at that point in time, den mother. But I've had quite a few cubs, and it's getting pretty positive now, especially with Shield. She's going to be 5, so hopefully she has cubs. And it just shows that their instinctive behavioral patterns, that's what I try to keep in place. What it comes down to is trying to keep them wild, and that's what you guys are going to see today, because Shield's a pretty wild bear.
All the bears have names that you give them.
Yes, they do.
Even though they're going to stay wild, but do they have distinct personalities?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's what's so critical. That's what's so important about it. Everybody thinks bears are all the same. No, this particular bear that we're going to see today, Shield, she was like a matriarch in the pen. When I introduced other cubs and even her siblings, she would chase them up a tree. She was this little cub, and she acted like a sow. Even though she was this little cub, she would chase them up the tree. She would tree them. And when I introduced 3 new ones in the pen, she would investigate, and she ran the show in the pen. And that's why I think she's doing so well in the wild too. So I think some have different animalities than others, and she's just, if her cubs do half as good as she does, I think they're good to go.
It must be difficult seeing a lot of these bear that you interact with and you tag and you put the collars on. How many of those do you lose during the hunt?
Some, there's no doubt about it. You know, I've lost quite a few actually during the hunt, or, you know, and then other cases, if they lose their collar or something like that happens, you know.
We lose
really probably
consistently about 14%. It does vary a little bit from
I
year
don't
to
think,
year.
Randy, do you think any different than any other bear, really?
The orphans?
Yeah.
They're a little higher, I believe, if you were actually to look at it. Statistically, 1 out of 7 bears die every year. So to get a bear to be 5 years old like this, you have to get through each of those odds each year. I think the orphan bears have a little tougher go as far as surviving starvation. They tend to be able to do that, but when they start, they know nothing. They don't have the advantages of a wild bear whose mother has already showed them.
I'm going to disagree with you there, but that's okay.
Where the mother has already showed them where different food sources are, and a wild bear uses part of the mother's home range. So a wild bear can feed on those concentrated food sources within the mother's home range without fear of being challenged by other bears, because it's the mother's home range. And so the first year of life that they separate from their mother, they just go to the same places the mother showed them last year as a cub. So an orphan never was shown those places, plus they don't have the protection of the mother, as the mother will allow her offspring to share these concentrated food sources. So they have they have a little more struggle than a bear that has a mother showing them this and protecting them. And the following year, then they start expanding into their own area a little bit. And at that point, the orphans become even more, because they're 2 years old, and at 2 years old, they're typically kind of expanding their home range anyway and finding out what's over the hill. And where other food sources are, and just competing with other bears. So you have, takes a year or so for the orphans kind of catch up with the wild bears. And when the any bear is struggling to get by, then they're the nutritional stress makes them more likely to take more chances. So they have to take the chance maybe to stay out in the open of, say, a raspberry patch, to get those raspberries, when it'd be a lot safer to stay near the edge and near an escape tree. But after a while, the edge gets all the berries taken, and so you have to move into the open. So you expose yourself a little bit. So it's not exactly the same, but it's similar. It's in the end.
I think with Miles, Sandy, and Oxbow, when they were released, and they were only 8 months.
Before I forget to do it, so I'll introduce my crew. This crew I'm very fortunate to have is 3 years in a row. Capture crew has remained the same. That's very unusual, mostly because we don't pay very well, but also that we only pay for a short period of time, and we only pay for the first 40 hours as well every week, and after that you're on your own, and we tend to run 60 or 70 hour weeks. Pretty proud of these guys. Start off with Lisa Bates, is sitting right there. Lisa's been with me for 10 years now, both trapping and den work. She's got a lot of dens under her belt. There's not many people that you'll find that put their hands on more bears than Lisa, and so she's very experienced, and she started working for me when she was still in college, And you can do the math if you want to figure it out, but it was 10 years ago. She volunteered to trap for me down east. She really looked like she was 12 years old when she started working for me, and for that reason, I started calling her Kid, and I still call her Kid today. If you can't remember Lisa, you might remember Kid, and she'll answer to either one. So that's Lisa Bates. Standing next to her is Jake Feener. Jake volunteered to trap for me down east 3 years ago. Jake grew up in mid-coastal Maine. When he graduated from high school, he went out west to fight fires, went to Oregon, and fought fires all over the west and even all over the country, really, even sometimes in the east, and worked his way onto a helicopter rappel team, and was part of the team that went to the forest fire and threw a rope out, stood on the skids, and slid down a rope with a heavy pack on in the middle of the forest fire to fight the forest fire. So for that reason, we call him Jump or Jumper. And if you can't remember Jake, you may remember Jump. And sitting here in the corner waiting patiently is Mitchell Jackman. Mitch grew up on a farm in Vermont, went to school at Orono, and after he graduated in Orono, asked if I'd be interested in him volunteering to trap for me, and so we took him on, and he didn't disappoint me at all. And he's a pretty incredible dart rifle shot. He has a lot of skills that he adds to the team. We have a really good capture team here. He's a big part of it. We call Mitch Shoe, and so if you can't remember Mitch, you might remember Shoe. And that's my team. All right.
Once again, that's Randy Cross, who has been tagging, coloring, and monitoring bears for 34 years. We'll take a break right here. For you, it'll be about a 3-minute break. For me, it'll be about 75 minutes. We're driving down east to meet a bear named Shield, somewhere off Route 9 in the Mopang Stream area. I'll meet you there in a few minutes. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8. This weekend show comes from a visit to a bear's den on Monday, March 14th. Every year, the bear crew from the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife goes to check on about 100 radio-collared bears to see how they're doing and to see if they have cubs. Nature and hunters remove about 14% of all bears from the woods every year. IFW monitors the population to make sure we're making enough of them to replenish the ones we've lost. So far, we are. Today's bear is special. She's named Shield because she has a white patch in her chest that looks like a shield. She was rescued 5 years ago as an abandoned cub, raised in a refuge until she was a yearling and old enough to be released into the wild. She's now 5 years old and she's denning down east. The bear team and some VIPs are here along with me and Don Brown, who cared for this very bear when it was just an infant. We're all here to see if she's got cubs. First step, I've got to get on an ATV. The biologist named Jump is driving. We've got to go down this abandoned dirt road about a half a mile until we get to where radio telemetry tells us the bear is denned up. At this point, nobody knows if the bear has cubs, and nobody knows if the bear will run off the moment she hears us coming. After a short ride, we get there.
Right to the den because we don't know what we're getting into.
We've stopped on the side of this faint road in the woods. For mid-March down east, it's very, very dry. There's no snow and not even much mud. We're being very quiet. The den is nearby, and even though we're not close to it yet, hibernating bears aren't really hibernating. They're alert to everything, and she almost certainly knows we're here.
We'll go that route. For one of our, we have a lot of code words for everything, and you won't really necessarily know everything that we're doing, but I think, Bob, you're probably a history buff. You would get a kick out of this. When we're actually loading up, we usually say fix bayonets, and we have a hand signal for it as well. But that's when we get these pipes ready. So even though she's probably aware of us right now, I don't believe it's probably causing her too much grief at this point, but she's not going to like it when we get close.
With me right now are Randy Cross, Lisa Bates, Jake Feener, and Mitch Jackman, the Bear crew. IFNW Deputy Commissioner Tim Peabody is here, and the couple who saved this bear when it was just an orphan cub, Mike and Don Brown.
So, Tim, this is how we inject most of our drug. This with a pole syringe, and it's just the force of the pole to push the drug in. Rock cavities are particularly difficult often because we can't alter the den at all. So we have what we have, and often rock cavities are like that. And so we could very well have to go to one pipe and go in around the corner. We'll see. Sometimes
among the gear we're sorting out, the crew has some dart guns. Jake, who goes by the nickname Jump, is supposed to be an incredible shot with it, but the main weapon is a jab stick. These are 2-foot-long sections of pipe that are threaded together to match the right length of the den. The needle is on the tip, and it is loaded so that it releases the tranquilizer when jabbed into the bear. So this is basically hand-to-claw combat. After we've geared up, we start through the woods. It's about 60 yards into the den. Now, I'm worried because it sure looks like spring around here. I wonder if the bear is even still in there. There's just no snow and so little mud that I could be doing this in my bedroom slippers. I'm actually wearing tall rubber boots because I thought we'd be doing this in mud. But this is Downeast, and in this particular spot, it's all glacial till. Very sandy soil that drained off really quickly. In fact, I guess that's why the bear chose this spot. She found an old groundhog hole or something in the sandy soil beneath the ledge, and it was easy to hollow out into bear size.
You bring your bag right to the den and get the bag out right away.
The crew is using hand signals. Jump is going around to the far side with a tranquilizer dart rifle. Denning bears are awake and alert. Too often they'll run. If the bear is in there and she doesn't have cubs, she could be over the hill and gone before we even get close. Randy and Kid are up front, making a beeline for the den hole. The idea is to get Lisa into that hole before the bear realizes we know she's in there. Lisa is about 15 yards ahead of me. Suddenly, she's on her knees, and then on her belly, and her head disappears down a tunnel. She is face to face with a bear under there. I'm standing back about 5 feet. It's a little too far for you to hear what I hear, but Mama Bear is making some lip-smacking noises, which is a warning. We can also hear at least one cub making suckling noises. So, for the first time, we know that this 5-year-old sow is a first-time mom. For many long minutes, all we can see is Lisa's legs out the back of the hole. She's having a lot of trouble because there's a bend in the tunnel. The 4-foot jab stick won't bend around the bend. She keeps working it in a tight space.
Yeah, she's talking to the cubs. Yeah. Telling the cubs to be quiet. You hear her? She's clucking. She's still doing, sounds like a gulping noise. There's one cub suckling. Hear that, Bob? Yeah.
More minutes pass. Lisa is still wiggling around in the hole. Suddenly, there's a quick movement and a loud huff.
Did you get her, Kid? No.
Lisa starts to back up, but it's tight and her legs have nothing to pull on. Randy and Jump grab her waist and pull her back a foot. But they stop there, and she leans back into the den a little further. She got the bear, but not well. The needle bent, and less than half of the tranquilizer dose hit home. She's watching to see if the bear is reacting. In another couple of moments, they pull Lisa out and cover the hole with a blanket.
She sure felt it.
Is rolling?
Yeah, she's done.
Might have rolled. It might have been just
It was bent, but just once. I think you've got enough there to smooth her out.
For now, there's nothing we can do but wait 10 minutes. If the bear got a big enough dose, she'll be asleep, and we'll be able to tell by the sound of her breathing. But in 10 minutes, if we still hear her making nervous noises and telling her cubs to be quiet, we're going to have to do this all again. Only this time, she'll be even more angry at this jab stick that has already poked her once. This is a good time to take a break while we wait to see if the bear goes to sleep. After a quick word from our sponsors, we'll find out if we're actually going to have to wrestle this bear again. And we'll find out how many cubs she has. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. We're back. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. And we're down east with the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, checking on a mama bear named Shield. We've been trying to get her tranquilized so that we can check her health and see what she has for cubs. But she's been fighting us every step of the way. 10 minutes ago, we got some drugs into her, but was it enough to put her down? Not this bear.
She's in there quite a ways. You could just barely reach her with a 4 foot. 6 foot was a little too long. Of course, after she pinched the bear, it's got the drug is hydrochloric acid in it, so it stings. And then immediately goes numb, but it stings like a bee sting. And they react to that. And that's why, I don't know, you heard her.
Yeah.
Roar.
Yeah.
She jumps at her. Because then she's right in her face. But, you know, it's a moving target. Like if you could pinch her and get her jump forward and hold still for a second, that would be easier. But they jump right in your face and then they jump back in. So hopefully she got it. It was a tough angle, long, right at the end of her reach. But she jumped the drug, so hopefully it went in. It's really hard to get them in the bicep because it's so rounded. If you're just a little off, you'll kind of roll it. We call rolling it. You'll still squirt the drug, but you might not get it in. Yeah. It's a hard target. It's kind of a rounded target. So what we really like between the bicep and the tricep, we call it the patch shot. There's a groove between those two muscles. If you can get them side two like that right up from the elbow, it's ideal, but you can't get them to move around. You just got what you got. And she's facing, obviously facing. Facing is difficult, and it's understandable. She'd face the entrance when she knew we were out here.
What level of alertness do they have?
Oh, wide awake. Absolutely wide awake. Absolutely. They knew when we were out there.
Yeah.
She might be still. You could hear jaw popping after the rush, and she was talking to the cubs before. It sounds almost like she's swallowing. It's like it's a clucking noise, kind of telling the cubs to be quiet. So first litter of cubs, and that makes them get a little more amped up too. She's never had cubs before. It's a low percentage shot. It's like a long 3-pointer when you have to go at the bear that's facing you. A couple minutes. A bit of
The mama bear named Shield is not down. She's agitated and making a lot of weird sounds. The one I can hear most sounds like sort of a foghorn.
Cub's still suckling.
Yeah, look how big she's back further.
It's been decided the longer arms are needed. Mitch Jackman, the man they call Shoe, is going into the den next. It's a tighter squeeze for him. As we're getting prepped, the bear noises are just getting weirder.
She's really wound up. It's kind of weird that there's still a cub suckling.
Rear
Randy Cross is loading up another dose. This is a very high-tech tranquilizer cocktail. Each dose costs about $60. And we've already half-spilled one, and she's ripped another one right off of Shoe's jab stick. Some bears don't make it easy.
Yeah. Come on back up. You just yanked it off, huh?
Took a couple steps on it and just thumped it.
Yeah, we don't even have a plunger left.
This is going to take a few more minutes to reload. The bear had taken a couple of steps forward, grabbed the needle, and swatted it to the side of the den. It's now down there on the floor somewhere. Even the plunger is ripped off. Shoe is brought back up. Shoe has done several things right, and the biggest thing is that when the bear darted forward and huffed in his face, he did not back up. He showed no sign of fear to the bear.
Why does she sound like a foghorn?
And now the bear is wondering who was confident enough that they can't be bluffed. If the bluff charge had worked, this bear would be even more assertive. The bear is still rumbling down there. Now, how many people would listen to a perturbed mama bear with cubs that has just been poked with a needle and is waiting in the hole below for the next intruder? And who would go down there anyway? Get this, the crew decides to shorten the stick to just one pipe. The next attempt will be made with just 2 feet of pipe. 5 more minutes to reload, several more minutes to get Shoe back down into the den, and many more minutes while he tries to jab the bear, and the bear tries not to be jabbed.
It's like a stone pole away. It's like over here. I wish I could say she's calming down.
She sounds agitated.
Yeah, she's not. Yeah, more than one.
10 minutes goes by. Shoe is still down in the hole. He's tried a jab, maybe enough to get a little bit into her. They bring the stick out to see how much dose is actually gone.
No. Shoe, what do you want to do? She got a little bit, not much. 134. Shoe.
Yep.
Want to bring it back in?
What?
I gotta bring it back in. She only got 0.5.
You what?
Only got 0.5.
Okay.
We have a few aggressive bears like this, but usually they're 12 to 18 years old when they get this aggressive. This is the most vocal of any bear we've done all year.
They pass the stick back down, and the dance begins again. Every now and then, Shoe chuckles. This bear knows exactly what the stick is, and she will not let it near her.
We're at 6 minutes, Shoe. 6 minutes.
What if you lay that stick on the other side of the wall that you're trying to work on and just wiggle it once in a while with the other hand? Get her to look away. Hey.
Got her? Come on up, Shoe.
Got her. Shoe is pretty tired when he crawls out of the hole. They quickly put the blanket over the hole, and the waiting begins again. In 10 minutes, she should be completely under. After Shoe has had time to shake it off a little. So you're in there with the bear. What happened?
I crawled in, and she's in there, and she was quite a ways away. and maybe like 5 feet. So I had to army crawl in and kind of push some sand out of my way to get situated. And she was very vocal in there, and obviously was really upset that with the proximity that I was to her, and I pose a threat to her, and so she was jaw popping and bluffing and typical kind of behavior, like aggressive behavior or warning behavior. And she I don't know, it was a lot of kind of cat and mouse sort of games that I was playing with her with a stick. She knew she had been, we've handled her previously, so she knew that what that stick was, that was going to be a poke and a sting, and she didn't want that anywhere near her. So she was, every time I would get it close to her, she would, bite at it or lunge at it, and at one point it was pretty close to my head, and she came out and grabbed it and sucked it right into back into her nest that was in the back of the den. And she finally, she kept looking at me, and then she'd look away and kind of keep an eye on me out of the corner of her eye. And I was finally able to get a little bit of drug in her, and that calmed her down a little bit. And then I was able to, kind of work some more angles, and I finally got her in the knee. So, but it was pretty scary. It was like my heart and breathing was, pretty amped up, and I don't know, it was exciting. But
that's Mitch Jackman, also nicknamed Shoo, who has just managed to tranquilize an aggressive mama bear in her den. Once again, it'll take a few minutes for the bear to go completely asleep, so we'll take a break. When we return, how many cubs does she actually have? Just how big is this bear we've been wrestling with? Is everybody healthy? Well, I have to haul him out to see. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Here we are, down east with the bear named Shield. I'm with the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Bear Crew. We've managed to tranquilize this bear, and Jake Feener is down at the den right now getting ready to hand out the cubs. Some cubs can be so full of milk they're quiet and sleepy. But just like their mother, these cubs are feisty and noisy. And here they come.
Oh my God, you can see it.
Out they come. One male, one female.
There's Grammy. One male, one female.
The first one goes right to Dawn Brown. Dawn is now a proud grandma. It was she and her husband Mike who raised this mother bear from a cub. And Dawn is now beaming from ear to ear, cuddling this new cub close to her heart. Lisa Bates grabs the second as it comes out.
One last year.
Another he, yep.
This was a big
So
male.
it's a boy, no chest, no non-permanent ewe.
Yep.
A lot of things have to happen in a hurry. First, the cubs need to be measured and weighed.
All right, kid, we're ready to go.
Yep.
1624,
Yep. 1624.
3238.
3238.
One of the most important parts of this bear study is to determine productivity. On average, how many of our study bears are producing cubs and how healthy are they? These guys look pretty good, and they're making lots of noise.
I like that.
Yeah, mine does too, but it ain't gonna last. No, it's not gonna last.
Jump is still down in the den, fastening ropes gently around the bear's paws so that it can be lifted out for her examination and weigh in. And they'll need to check her radio collar and make sure it's ready to go another year.
She's a big girl.
How big do you think she is?
In a moment, out they come. Mama's looking pretty healthy as they lay her on a clean blanket.
150, yeah.
Meanwhile, the cubs are getting a set of matching ear tags. From now on, these guys will be numbers 612 and 613, which just goes to show how many bears have been tagged in this research project over the years. But really, they've tagged more than that. They switched to a different numbering system a few years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
All clear?
Yeah.
Over the last few minutes, we've been joined by some additional VIPs. Once the sedation was accomplished, several members of the legislature's Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee have come up. Everybody's going to get a chance to hold the cubs. The cubs aren't too happy to be away from their mother's milk supply at the moment, but they don't mind being handled particularly. They have a natural instinct to climb, so the first thing you need to do is learn how to hold them. Cuddling them under your chin or jacket so that they can't go up, or turning them around facing out so they can't grab your sweater.
Yeah,
When you're holding cubs, you're in charge. The cubs are going to want to be in charge. They're going to turn around and try to grab on. They want to climb up higher.
This is also the first time they've been away from mother's warmth, so they can shiver a little bit, but they are adorably cute.
Yeah, sometimes they do, yeah.
So take control.
Oh, this one's chilling out. Hey, what do you think? Oh, where's my mom?
Right there.
When Mama Bear wakes up, she'll be in her den snuggling her 2 cubs like nothing ever happened. They'll put a little cedar oil underneath their nose so that all of our weird scents will have time to fade a little bit. By this morning's show, they're now probably out and about somewhere in the woods down east. Remember, you can share this show with others on the web at 929theticket.com. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 8. It's brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.